My teeth are generally straight, and I have a but I've had like weirdness.
When I had them, my teeth were straight. Yeah. Yes, but my wife's teeth are beautiful. But
some people are just lucky, and
yeah.
But I mean, like, but of course, like, you know, through the years of like the front parts kind of wore through. I guess it was like oil or not oil, like acidic things. So I kind of had like somewhat concave front teeth, but they put like sort of stuff on it, and then they sort of buffed it down, so it kind of recreated a tooth. But then I have like my two sort of side teeth. So I was like 1, 2, 3, fourth from the front, and let's see, and I have my wisdom teeth pulled. So 1, 2.
That had to have been
third from the back. I am missing teeth. Now it doesn't really. If I'm smiling, I have to have a huge smile before you even notice. But I gotta say, like, it hurts way less now that this tooth is pulled. Because I was like negotiating. You have kind of the 5 stages of tooth pain. It's like, just help me make it through this. Oh no! And I'm like, oh, I'm fine. And then as soon as I drink, I'm dying. And then
this happened to me right before we moved back to the city. The last night we stayed in the house in Brewster, and I had such horrible pain. I was on the floor crying.
Yeah, I was close to that.
They had to take me to the hospital. I had to go to the emergency room. They had to give me some kind of a really horrible painkiller. I mean, like a really powerful painkiller. It took forever for it to work, and then I had to go through all this, you know, of moving, and it was just a nightmare.
What did they end up doing with your tooth? Or did you get it pulled? Did you?
It turned out it was an impacted wisdom tooth, so they had to remove it.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
And they did it, but it hurt like fucking hell.
It's the worst. It is the worst. You can't. And it's like
the very nice dental hygienist from Trinidad was holding my hand and squeezing it because I was crying so hard.
Yeah, I was.
God bless him.
I was close to that. I mean, I kind of like what I was doing was since I've never had this problem before on the other side, it was pretty much the same thing. It was a cracked tooth is what it was. And
I remember I showed it to the doctor at the emergency room. She's like, wow, that looks really bad. I was like, thank you.
Yeah. I did cry. I mean, I cried, but it was like a man cry where I was like just like silently, and then the one tear kind of thing. And yeah.
the male tear.
I did the man tear of just the But then the pain was kind of like floating, and it was early enough in the stages of the tooth going bad that, you know, I didn't have like necrosis or dead tooth or really, because
I think I probably had that. I think that term sounds familiar.
You have like necrotic flesh. You have dead flesh, and then they have to scrape it and
dead flesh. Well, a lot of my tooth problem came from quitting smoking. When I quit smoking, this is what happens to your gums. Yeah. They tend to recede, and the tooth gets so loose, and then it just fucking came out.
Yeah, the tooth was a little bit. Yeah, the tooth was a little bit loose. Having this tooth pulled was a little different than the last time, because the last time the guy went in there and he really had to pull and tug to get it. Like he's trying to get he's trying to get like leverage. Whereas this one.
He had to put his foot up on something to give himself.
Yeah. Whereas this one,
he said, "Get behind me, get behind me." It's like Robert Shaw and and Roy Scheider trying to reel in the shark on the piano wire. Get behind me.
This was different. Now maybe it was just the way that she did it, the dentist. But what she did was, once we got the Novocaine to where it actually worked, she kind of just sort of scraped around the edges a little bit, and then when she took it out, I was expecting her to really get in it. And she just went, beep, and it came right out. She's there's a tooth. And I went, it's out?
Yeah.
She's like, yeah. I was like, oh, thank you.
Well, this most recent sucker just had gravity working for it. It was just like, oh, it's time to go.
Yeah.
And then bloop.
And I'm telling you.
Well, we're not talking about teeth tonight.
Oh, okay.
Actually, well, I don't know what I'm gonna. I know what I wanted to talk about.
You said National Lampoon.
Right. I got this movie, a documentary.
I think I've seen.
And it's called Drunk, Stoned, Brilliant, Dead, the story of the National
Lampoon. I saw it was on Showtime like a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think it came out, let's see here. It came out
2015?
2015. Produced by, I guess, let me see, Magnolia Pictures in association with the History Channel.
Yeah, and of course, they still don't exactly know what happened with Stork and how he died and what that was. Did he jump?
Well, Doug Kenny, yeah.
Did he jump? Was he pushed?
Why? It's just okay. This is the problem with the documentary. I'm glad you saw it. At least maybe you can.
I have a
refresh
vague
your memory a little
remembrance
bit.
of it. Yeah.
But it's like it's very kind of forgettable. That's the problem with the documentary. It's not terribly informative.
Well, I mean, it's always funny to watch all the old farts remember the good times, I guess.
I get, but
people who used to be talented.
It's every story that you hear about that takes place in the 70s and or 80s where you're riding high and you shove all that money, convert it into cocaine, and then shove it straight up your nose.
You could almost,
and then it's over.
Have you seen the documentary about Atari? There was a documentary about what went on in Atari. It's almost the same exact thing. Bunch of hippies.
I didn't see a full documentary about Atari. I saw a documentary about the E.T. game and the fiasco that was.
Yeah,
that was a little more informative than this movie.
Really?
This movie was not like that. It was okay. So Netflix is made a movie based on this documentary that I hope is going to be better, but it does look like it's going to be better. It's called it's a very funny title, A Futile and Stupid Gesture. And
I was tempted to actually watch that before we started.
I will watch it as soon as I get my Netflix. I will watch it because I like a lot of people involved in this. It's directed by David Wayne, who was one of the guys from the
I know that guy. Yes.
That comedy. Remember the comedy show on MTV, The State?
The State. It was also on the show called Stella. I remember that.
Stella, and he was the director of Wet Hot American Summer, which is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my life. Still laugh my ass off.
The other guy, Michael Showalter, he's funny too.
Michael Showalter, Michael Ian Black, people like that, yeah. But this movie stars Will Forte as Doug Kenny, and Martin Mull as modern Doug, which makes no sense because he's dead, of course. And you got Domhnall Gleeson, who was in the recent Star Wars movies. What's his name? Hux. You got Seth Green playing Christopher Guest. He looks nothing like him. You got Thomas Lennon playing Michael O'Donoghue. Joe Lo Truglia, of course, Natasha Lyonne. Joel McHale playing Chevy Chase, which is hilarious in and of itself.
Because of all the crap he had to deal with on the show.
Yeah.
Did you hear about Chevy Chase? Oh, we can talk about that. Chevy Chase was involved in some new sort of road rage incident where he got beaten up.
Wait, he got beaten up by who, though?
The guy that he chased. Like, what happened was, I think he chased the guy. Then they caught up with him, and then the guy beat him up.
What?
You have to look it up. You can look it up. It's like you just look up Chevy Chase.
Oh, I thought he was going to do like this thing because he had there was this Law and Order episode where Chevy Chase plays a celebrity who is pulled over by a cop and then proceeds to insult him based on his ethnic or whatever thing. It's kind of like a replay of the Mel Gibson thing, but they had Chevy Chase playing the part, and it was like a kind of a dramatic, meaty role for Chevy, and he was actually really good in the episode, but nothing came of it. I mean,
from what I've heard, Chevy
seems
Chase,
like nobody wants to work with Chevy anymore. It's funny.
I think it's a combination of he was sort of a torture genius when he was a genius, and now he's just like this weird sort of cranky old man that
he's fun. You know what? I take issue though with the documentary. He's in the documentary. Mm-hmm. And I take issue with the documentary because they want to take credit for Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase was like, back in those days, he was everywhere in comedy and in acting circles. He was doing stage plays. He worked for Channel 1, you know, the people who brought us to Groove Tube, which is a brilliant, brilliant movie.
So you're saying, are we recording this, by the way?
I am.
Okay, good. I was like, is this going to be part of the show? Yeah. So what was?
But they take credit for Chevy. He just joined. I mean, like National Lampoon wasn't any. I mean, it started. Okay, the story goes that it starts as Harvard Lampoon, right? Doug Kenny is a student at Harvard along with Chris Miller, and they kind of formed this new thing called National Lampoon, or they kind of revived the whole Harvard Lampoon tradition. Yeah. And then it sort of comes together with a bunch of other people, and there were like a couple of things in there where they're taking credit for certain people when those people become famous, and those people don't go to Harvard, you know, like the people like Chevy Chase and John Belushi and Bill Murray. Well, you know, I mean, there was a rivalry. I remember there was a rivalry between Belushi and Chevy Chase. They hated each other because Belushi saw Chevy Chase as kind of upper middle class, you know, and so did Murray to a certain extent. Actually, Murray wound up coming to blows with Chevy Chase at one point. Later
Everybody
on,
comes to blows with Chevy Chase at some point.
But the Belushi family and the Murray family of Chicago, these were poor families with lots of kids, you know, and Chevy was kind of good looking, and he got a lot of work being good looking, and he got.
Well, he was talented. Darn it.
He's talented too, and he was also the only cast member who identified himself every time he said something, right? I'm Chevy Chase and you're not. But he also beat out his own friend, Richard Belzer, for that part, because Richard Belzer, not a good-looking guy. He was funny as hell, but he wasn't good-looking. And so there was a little bit of resentment for Chevy because he was sort of the face of Saturday Night Live when it first came out.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, okay, we have worked with certain people, certain persons. And if our frequent wire thing was to take off and be the most popular thing in the world, I think that particular person might take credit.
Might get credit
for all of our hard work that we've been doing together, where we started kind of.
Well, I'm not going to be a douche and call them out on it. If they want to think they were part of something special, that's fine.
Yeah, I guess whatever. But no,
so a lot of people don't do nearly the kind of work I do.
So he who knows, if he's listening, he probably doesn't even care. He probably doesn't even care because he doesn't. But you know, if you want to take credit for us, we're fine without you. All right, now go walk out the door. Just turn around now. We don't need you anymore. We're fine.
You talking about the fag or the hag?
Well, we should have changed that stupid lock. But we're doing great. We've been doing great shows. You know, we can cross promote if we want. We're two Davids walk into a bar, a great show. David and Gene and Roger, a great show. Ship to Ship, a great show. Various other things that we're doing.
My favorite, Your Mother's a Whore. Now that one is the one that's really popular.
Excellent show. Yes.
What we do is we call celebrities. We get their numbers. We call the celebrities. They pick up the phone. Hello, is this Mr. Chevy Chase? Yes, it is. And you're not. Chevy, your mother's a whore. And then we hang up the phone.
Do we say it like Sean Connery?
We get 500 views an hour on that one.
Do we say it like Sean Connery? Your mother's a whore.
Your mother's a whore. But back to the documentary.
Yes.
I was really I was let down by the documentary because it wasn't informative for me. All the stories are kind of like third-hand and hyperbolic, as the word were, and I wanted to know more about the process. I wanted to know more about the creative process, and instead they kind of give you this indication that it's a bunch of guys hanging around, smoking weed, snorting coke, and drinking alcohol, surrounded by naked women all the time, and that's not helpful. That's not helpful. And
sounds fun, though.
And then they do this thing that drives people like me nuts, which is they chalk it all up to luck. They say, well, it was luck. I'm like, shut up. It was not luck. There had to have been a calculated effort. And also, it's a magazine. It has to be published. You have to go through subscribers and circulation and ad revenue, and you have to put it all together.
Okay, now I have a question about it. Is National Lampoon even around in any form right now?
I couldn't even tell you.
And I think that's...
I had a magazine. I did collect them, actually. I collected them, and also I believe an uncle of mine had an enormous collection of National Lampoons.
Are they even online? Is it just a bunch of the old farts? They have their own website, you know, like everybody else?
I'm sure. You know what? I know there's an archived... there's an archive for computer.
Cranking out... Like, you still have some... you know, minds that are usable within that sort of brain trust. I mean, they could be cranking out funny things if they wanted to.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, no. Actually, this is my next point. My next point is that this kind of humor, no, the magazine stopped in November of 1998, 249 issues altogether. Now, the problem here is that they do showcase a lot of the humor that was going around at that time, and we're talking like early 70s to maybe mid to late 80s or something, because that's what's considered, I guess, the most popular era. And unfortunately, you know, for me, the way I see it, it's not really the writing or the satire or the humor that really sold the magazine. What sold the magazine at first was all the naked women. There's just naked women. I mean, you know, you could pick it up. I was talking to my wife about this today. You could pick up a National Lampoon and peruse all the pictures of all the gorgeous models with big tits, right? But it's got satire in it, so you can be smart. So you get to look at the tits and still be smart.
And remember that at that time, it was so hard to get any sort of nudity of any kind anywhere. I mean, we were panning for gold, kids. It was not as easy as it is now. There was no internet. I mean,
just think about it like a more satiric, sardonic, sarcastic version of Playboy, and you've got National Lampoon.
Yeah.
That's sort of what it was. But the
and also it may have been something that, you know, people of limited intellectual capacity could read and feel that they're smart just because they have that magazine. Mm-hmm. Certain people.
Well, I'm quite frankly, I'm quite frankly shocked that the movie got distribution, but it does have a lot of interviews with people. It's just the interviews don't really give you anything. There's nothing there that tells a story. It's just kind of like a bunch of catchphrases or people just memes. Mm-hmm. What do they call them? Memes today, right? Just people just saying one line, one word, whatever. Some kind of a, but they talk to they talk, of course, to Judd Apatow because he's in every goddamn documentary now more than he's everywhere. Judd Apatow. And I think even my wife was like looking at him one day and said, I really wish he would go away.
Well, he's in the Disaster Artist too.
Yeah, for fuck's sake. And that's because, he's kind of like, he's the Godfather. He's like the comedy Godfather. Also, he represents
Hollywood, the sort of the the guy that says you're not talented, you'll never make it. The guy basically at the top of the food chain that says you're not allowed to come into this special group that we created ourselves.
I get, even though he's kind of, he wrote for some really funny shows back in the day, like the Ben Stiller show, very funny. Mm-hmm. What was that other? Undeclared, Freaks and Geeks, things like that. And he made a good movie with 40-Year-Old Virgin, which I really enjoyed. Yes. Knocked Up, not as much. I don't really enjoy that. And also, it seems like he exists merely to give his wife work because she never gets jobs for anybody else but him. Which is funny.
That's what I do.
Also, he wrote The Cable Guy, which was kind of funny as well.
Cable Guy is a lost classic, I think.
Mm-hmm. So I really can't recommend it. I'm sure it'll be on Netflix or you might find it on Netflix.
Well, like I said, it was on Showtime, so maybe it'll just pop up again. They show a lot of really good documentaries. I mean, they did that one, if you've seen it, about Richard Pryor. It's called Omit the Logic.
I think I might have seen
that one on Showtime too.
Is that the one that uses a lot of clips from the Richard Pryor movie, the Live in Concert? It uses like a bunch of clips.
It might. I feel like it basically used every clip that they could use. I'm going to guess most of his material is owned by the estate, which is his ex-wife that took care of him at the end. They probably
one who insists he slept with Marlon Brando.
Yeah, I am still waiting for somebody to take footage from both of their movies and create some sort of 50 Shades of Grey trailer. I think that would be the funniest thing in the history of everything. But that's just me.